Welcome to the Geekcentric podcast, and welcome back to our watch club for Star Wars Ahsoka. I don't know what frightens me more, the possibility of what might happen, or your unwillingness to see it. Welcome back to Watch Club. My name is Nate, and this is our Watch Club for Star Wars Ahsoka, Episode 7, Part 7, the penultimate episode, titled Dreams and Madness, directed by Geeta Vasant Patel. If you're joining us for the first time, this is Watch Club, our weekly review series, kind of like a book club, but way better. Keep in mind, we will be going into full spoilers for this series and Star Wars in general, so if you haven't watched this week's episode yet, be sure to do so, and then come right back in less than 12 parsecs. Now, before we all bust out our slingshots to fight some night troopers, let me introduce you to a full Rebel crew joining me today. First up, he is no Jedi. He's Justin the Lothcat Lawrence.
Yo, what's going on?
Dude, doing well. Sounds like you got hit in the throat with a slingshot. You doing okay?
I feel like I got hit in the throat with a slingshot. For sure.
Oh, no. Well, hopefully talking about this episode makes you feel a little bit better.
I'll sound worse by the end of it, let me tell you.
There you go. But once again, on more episodes of this series than I'd ever expect, he's kind-hearted like Kanan, but just like Sabine, he's got to keep up with his training. He's Kevin, the Hu-Yang, hugging Hudson.
Nate, I find your lack of faith disturbing.
You know what, Kevin? I'm loving this new, journey into Ahsoka's story. We got some interesting moments that kind of touch upon a little bit even more of her backstory that I'm stoked to talk to you about. So, but listen, last but certainly not the last Jedi, he's docking down, declaring droid in dank pendants. He's Darcy, the dank Dathomirian Hudson.
Hello.
Back again. You took a little bit of a break from this watch club. Happy to have you back, Darcy.
Yeah, I mean, last week I was very tired from a long week of work, and the episode wasn't my favorite. So I'm like, you know what? I'm in a bad mood already from work. I won't have nice things to say. I'll take a step back for once.
Yeah, he vented on me.
You didn't give in to the...
Oh, yeah. I laid into Kevin when I saw him, that's for sure.
Oh, no. Gave into the temptation, into the dark side. But hopefully we can keep things a little more gray. In this episode, guys, we see Ezra pass up using his old lightsaber and even a blaster in lieu of using the Force. I wanted to ask each of you, if you could pick between the three for a fight against Thrawn's forces, what would you go with, Justin?
Oh, I probably would go with the blaster.
Yeah?
Just because the lightsaber would be probably very intimidating. I think I would be more fumbling with it than a blaster. But if I was trained with the lightsaber, for sure, I'd pick up the lightsaber. But,
for sure. But I think as a photographer, your aim would probably be pretty spot on, I'd hope.
There you go. I'd hope
Darcy,
so.
what about yourself?
Force all the way. I mean, we know the Force can stop blasters. We've seen it stop the lightsaber now.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of stuff it can do. It's incredibly versatile. You can even run away. You
can even run away. Kevin, would you be running
if I'm
away?
in a blaster fight, I'm running away. I'm trying to survive. That is the end goal.
Yeah.
If I'm channeling my Battlefront self, my favorite was always the standard troop with the standard blaster, simple, easy,
nice and easy.
Mm-hmm. I don't care what Obi-Wan says. A nice, accurate blaster is and can be very elegant.
Interesting. I think for myself, I don't trust myself to be able to aim anything. I think I'd have worse aim than a stormtrooper. So I think I definitely wouldn't go with that. And I think with a lightsaber, as much as it's a dream, obviously, between Darcy and I think we own all the lightsabers from Galaxy's Edge. But I think for myself, I would also go with the Force. I think I'd chop my own feet off with a lightsaber.
Yeah, Nate, we saw that video of you in your garage twirling the lightsaber around. It went viral. It went viral 15 years ago. Yeah.
That was absolutely 100% me. So yeah, no, I think the Force would be good. As much energy as it looks like it takes, I think it would be worth it to keep my limbs. But before we keep going here, I do want to just pause and remind you listening that we here at Geekcentric support SAG-AFTRA as they continue to strike to get the contract they deserve. We're stoked that it seems as though the WGA has finally gotten to an agreement, and we're hoping for the same outcome for our lovely, incredible actors that act in all these things that if we didn't have them, we wouldn't get these phenomenal stories like these ones from a galaxy far, far away. So if you want to support the actors of the things that we love, you can do so by checking out the links in our description. But let's get into this penultimate episode, Part 7, titled Dreams and Madness. What a way to kick things off. Let's go. This week, we kick things off on Coruscant, where Hera Syndulla is on trial for her actions from last week's episode. Senator Xiono tells the council that Hera has no problem bending the rules and the laws of their government to meet her personal agenda. He sarcastically says she protected the New Republic by ignoring direct orders, and she corrects him by saying she protected the New Republic by ignoring him. And everyone in that room should have gone, "Oh, shit!" That was at least in my headcanon. Xiono claims her report reads like a child's fairy tale. He goes on to claim there is no proof of any coordination between Imperial forces, and Carson Teva chimes in and asks about the conflict on Mandalore. And Xiono says Gideon was a warlord acting on his own. He motions that General Syndulla be court-martialed for disobeying a direct order. Just then, we hear some commotion in the background, and we hear a, "How rude," and it's frickin' C-3PO, who informs them that Senator Leia Organa personally sanctioned Hera's reconnaissance mission, which for Chancellor Mon Mothma settles the matter. She then pulls Hera aside to ask how real the threat of Thrawn's return really is, to which Hera says, "We have to prepare for the worst and hope for the best." Wow, like, what a fantastic way to open the episode. What did you guys think of the revelation in terms of the timeline confirmation, Xiono's aggressiveness, and Kevin, our golden boy, what did you think of seeing C-3PO yet again?
It's definitely awesome to see 3PO here, to see 3PO. I think, it's obviously cool to see these legacy characters, and you're right, it does do a great job of really establishing where we're at. Oh yeah, Leia would absolutely be around and in a power of a position of power. Somebody on Twitter actually brought up a really good point though, and I'm wondering what you guys think. It was Jordan Maison on Twitter. He asked, he says they just need to go ahead and recast Leia and some others for this era. Because things like the, she sends a message trick will not work, again, or it'll get old really, really quickly. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that. If we're going to spend a lot of time in this era where you have Luke, you have Leia, are they, better off maybe recasting some people to play these characters? It's worked with Mon Mothma. You've had... Carrie, the actress play her in the, at different eras with our new actress inserted at different timelines throughout. So, would it work for a more, impactful big time player? I'm wondering.
See, I think this is it's interesting because I think this was in my mind when this happened and he mentions Leia. I was just like, what a fantastic way to do this without having to spend a ton of money on another Luke de-aging situation, as much as that's, for the most part worked, I think, in those Book of Boba Fett episodes. I always have to check myself to make sure I'm saying the right
Mando.
series. And Mando. I just think that you're right. The idea of just this over and over and over again might not work. I could see them potentially doing that. I'm wondering, again, I think the difference is that Mark Hamill is still alive, right?
It is. Yeah, I think that's the biggest difference too. But Carrie Fisher's daughter, I think, would be a good casting if you were to recast. And
oh yeah,
so
Billy Lord.
Billy Lord would definitely I think that would be okay. I think Star Wars fans wouldn't get so squeamish about it. It would be the right way to respect Carrie Fisher and Princess Leia and having her involved in these stories. I think that would be great. Also, just, throwing it out there. I know it's not everyone's favorite movie, but we have had a Han Solo already. So if you bring him back and age him up, you can have him be a younger Han with Billy, and I think that works. Luke can be the elusive one, the one that only pops up every so often because he's this, all-powerful Jedi doing these things and stuff like that. So I'm less concerned with them having to if they were going to cast someone, if they can keep this whole de-aging thing and use almost Mark Hamill as Luke to kind of perfect it, to get better at it, to understand how the technology works and use it to improve the technology. I would be okay with that. But, to your point, Nate, I was completely fine with the way this went down. I think it was a loving cameo. It was more touching than anything else, I feel. And it's great to hear, obviously, Anthony Daniels' voice.
Oh my gosh,
as a character again, and just to hear him off in the distance. And then just the introduction is immediately kind of like, he's about to introduce himself and he's cut off by Mon Mothma, like 3PO, like we know who you are. It's just, it felt so familiar and then casual at the same time. So I really loved how they sprinkled it in. But to Kevin's point, they can't keep doing that, right? He can't just be the spokesperson for Leia Organa.
Yeah, like it's fantastic here, but you can't keep doing it if this is an era and a story we're going to tell for years over TV shows and eventually the big movie. I mean, at some point, Leia's got to be missing in action or she's got to be there, and how do they do it is the big question. It'll be interesting to see.
Absolutely. I do also want to address the other sort of, I think, like kind of there was so much happening that, there wasn't much happening, but there was so much happening at the same time. And I think that's some of the best parts of getting to see some of these sort of political sides of Star Wars. And it's what Andor did so well. But we got an incredible moment for Hera here, such a sick burn on Xiono. But then I also wanted to kind of maybe have Darcy chime in and the understanding that now we know this is set after Mando season 3. I know last week we kind of thought, maybe it could have been during season 3, but that little line from Carson Teva bringing up the conflict on Mandalore lets us know otherwise.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. We already saw Zeb and Mandalore as working for the New Republic, so it kind of lines up with the fact that he's off training new recruits at this base. Where again, we were introduced to new recruits and stuff like that. Our first introduction to the New Republic. So it kind of makes sense that they're using this episode to really pin it down, and I'm totally fine with that. I mean, that was already kind of my thoughts going into this, just because where we last saw Ahsoka in Book of Boba Fett and what she was doing at that point, kind of that was clearly before anything that happened here. So that kind of sets up it's got to be later on. I got to say, though, Xiono seems shady AF.
Super.
I think he's paid off. I think
he is helping the Imperial remnants. He's like, they're not doing anything. No, they're not doing anything. Way too forceful, man. You got to pump the brakes a bit if you're trying to sell the Senate that they aren't Imperials about.
Yeah, he's shutting down, he's saying like, oh, don't worry about Moff Gideon, don't worry about any of that. Like, we saw the Shadow Council in Mando. I really do think that this guy is connected. He's maybe the connecting thread between the New Republic and the Shadow Council, maybe using the communications that he's getting from the New Republic directly to the Shadow Council. And I think the other thing that's interesting as well, just with Xiono, there was so much from Xiono, and I don't have the actor's name, but phenomenal performance from him. I think it takes a lot to get you to love a character. I think it takes an equal amount to get you to hate a character, and I'm just like, I hate this guy. But I think his unwillingness to believe in Jedi and Star Whales just shows like kind of either how ignorant the world is on these things, or just how much he's really trying to hide these facts from the world.
Well, I mean, the world is also pretty ignorant. If you think about the first movie, no one believes in Jedi anymore. So these even more crazy ideas about Star Whales and distant galaxies and getting there, of course, people aren't going to buy that crap. I mean, they don't believe in Jedi.
Right, and I don't think it gets any better because we know that Xiono is from Hosnian Prime. And we all know we all know what happens. Like, it's like his hubris is really showing in this scene, and then it's sort of, you connect the dots and you're like, oh yeah, I mean, they were probably very ignorant when they were blown up by Starkiller Base. I also just want to shout out Chopper as well. Just the moment that reminded me, like, Kev, you know the meme of the cat with it's like the cat looking at the two ladies and they're like yelling at him or whatever.
Yeah,
it
was like, hold me back, bro. Hold me back, bro. Yeah.
So good.
Yo, what did he say?
Yeah.
I'm about to chop his ass. Yeah,
A mere droid. He doesn't know the maniac that he's literally standing in front of in that moment. Like, this droid has like murdered millions of people. Like, you better pump the brakes, as you said, Darcy. Admiral Akbar, awesome to see him sitting there next to Mon Mothma. But yeah, the real star of the show, like Anthony Daniels. This is his 12th live action appearance, which is officially, again, I think he already had this title, but the most an actor has ever appeared in live action Star Wars. That's not counting his appearance as not C-3PO and Han Solo, or his appearances or vocal appearances in the animated series. But no, I think if anything, I think my favorite moment in this scene was just seeing Paul Sun-Hyung Lee's, we'll call it a performance, but his just straight up fanboy, like eyeing C-3PO as he's walking towards him to talk to C-3PO. Like, what a phenomenal experience for him. I'm so happy for this guy.
Yeah, guy keeps checking off every nerd's dream, basically. Like, it
Every
gets better
episode.
every time he's in an episode. He's checking off another thing. He's like, I gotta talk to this guy. I gotta fly an X-wing. I gotta do this. Oh my god.
Attack foils in S position, like, just unreal. Or is it S foils in attack position? All right,
Yes,
take my nerd card back, give it back to Carson. And then just the fact that this was all before the title reveal. Like, the fact that we got this huge, lovely chunk of a scene with this, with these cameos and everything, and then boom, Ahsoka, the title reveal. Unreal. I'm higher on this episode, I think, the second time now that I've watched it back. But let's keep going here. Back on Ahsoka's ship, still inside of Purgle, by the way, we see Ahsoka training alongside a previously recorded holo message of her master, Anakin Skywalker. As Huyang enters, Ahsoka says that Anakin made 20 or more of those recordings, and that this was his last one. She says he was a good master, and Huyang informs her that the whales are near the end of their journey. Huyang tells her that the odds of finding Sabine are astronomically terrible. As soon as they drop out of hyperspace, they fly towards Pridia. Unfortunately, though, in order to make it to the planet, they have to now travel through a field of orbital mines. The Purgle take off back into hyperspace, leaving Ahsoka and Huyang to dodge and weave. Then, just as they clear the minefield, 3 enemy fighters begin to chase them into the Purgle bones floating around the planet. Enoch informs Thrawn that their fighters have chased her into the debris field, and Thrawn, having just learned that Anakin was her master, he tells Enoch to call off the fighters, to let her choose her own path so that they will stay one step ahead of her. The fighters back off and they land, her and Huyang land safely among the bones. Ahsoka recognizes Thrawn's tactics, and Huyang begins to scan for Sabine. Okay, so a couple things to discuss here. First off, like, Justin, let's get into that recording of Anakin. What did you think of that moment? And then I also, with everyone, I want to talk about Thrawn's discovery of Anakin as Ahsoka's master.
Yeah, the hologram was awesome. It gave me at least new context to look at it based on the last time we saw her interaction with Anakin, and
Right.
understanding what she learned from that in relation to, I guess, this old lesson that has new value. And I think that it was great to just remind us that in a lot of ways, Ahsoka is okay with the path of her master. She understands that Anakin was a good person, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that the two are separate. In her mind, she can make peace with knowing that her master was teaching her the right way as Anakin. Again, another little reminder of the lessons that were to be taken from not just Clone Wars, but episode 5 with Hayden Christensen making his reappearance as the character. So it was really great.
Well, I think this, in my mind, this recording came from Tales of the Jedi, And specifically, and Kevin, if you haven't watched Tales of the Jedi, I don't know if that was one of the things that we had told you to watch prior to this series, but I'm telling you, if you're digging Ahsoka's character, and of course, if you dig Count Dooku, which who doesn't dig Count Dooku, you should definitely check out Tales of the Jedi. Speaking of Dooku, I love the name drops that we got. We got General Grievous, we got Asajj Ventress, we got Count Dooku, and I think the coolest thing about this is, in my mind, in that moment, he's teaching her Form 4 with 2 lightsabers in terms of her fighting style. And that's so fitting because, you know, if you think about the biggest moment, or the biggest moments, including Anakin and 2 lightsabers, it would be, I mean, General Grievous had maybe at least 2 or 3 or 4 probably at a time. But Asajj Ventress definitely with 2. And then, of course, Count Dooku, eventually he would have, you know, the 2 lightsaber moment at the end of Count Dooku's life. So it's just kind of a neat sort of tie-in that they would have added for that moment. I just thought it was kind of cool.
I feel like you're reaching there, bud. I feel like you're really reaching, because Anakin was never a fan of Form 2. Asajj Ventress, Form 4, and Asajj Ventress didn't use it either. Just dual wielding is a very common thing. I think it was more just the lesson that he's teaching her to survive. That's
right. Yeah. And I think the other thing too is that he kind of makes that like sly remark of practice it more than I do. Because he doesn't practice, right? Like
he sticks to one thing and that's it. He uses his power and overpowers people.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because not to say that he was a reluctant leader, but it's very clear from the episode 5 with seeing these past memories with him that his perception of a Padawan changed, right? Like he looked at her as a warrior, not as another, you know, keeper of peace. I think that ties into why Ahsoka feels sort of slighted or guilted by the path that Anakin ended up taking, and did some of his dark side rub off on her. You know, those are the sort of questions that I think she's kind of been dealing with. But here it's just nice to see her, you know, after her moment, just have another perception of this training from so long ago. It just gives new light to it all.
Well, and I will say that if there is a connection that I really dug that maybe actually really does stand out, is him at the end saying, trust your instincts, right? Which is a line that's been passed down from unorthodox Jedi to unorthodox Jedi throughout her lineage, which I just think was really lovely. And I know that's kind of just a standard line, but I thought it was fantastic. And I did think this scene was really touching in the sense that, like,
I believe in you. Yeah.
Well, not only that, but she does the bow just as he does, right? As if she's like done this so many times before that she's like practiced this, right? I just think it really shows how much she really does actually respect who he was to her and what he taught her.
And the fact that they showed the box that she keeps all of these in, it makes me wonder, especially given the fact that the next scene we're about to talk about with Thrawn coming to the realization of you know, Ahsoka's master being Anakin, could he get those in his hands and have them as like an archive?
Ooh.
Steal them.
Wow. That's
possibly. I just think that his realization there is, again, Thrawn's first or reintroduction to canon. His first appearance was him crash landing on a planet with Anakin and them having to work together to survive. So he had first-hand interaction with Anakin, and that was his idea of a Jedi for the longest time, until he came back years later to join the Empire, basically, and hunt the Jedi. And he was almost disappointed because they were nowhere near as creative or inventive as Anakin. So again, he knows how unorthodox Anakin was, and can only assume that his Padawan will be just as unhinged type thing. So
Nicholson acted that scene flawlessly.
So
when his realization, his eyes, his pause, his like sort of slow turn to Morgan with like, her master was Anakin Skywalker. It makes you wonder too, like how much he, like, again, as you've outlined, Darcy, you know, how much of their have Anakin and him had interactions, and is he aware of Anakin and fighting in the Clone Wars and whatnot?
Oh, and he had in the later books, of course, the second trilogy of Thrawn books that have been canonized. He is on the trail of finding out that Darth Vader is Anakin. So I'm not sure if he ever came to that realization.
It seems like
I think he might know. Yeah.
That to me was the biggest giveaway. Was you filter that in with that he's probably had the interaction with Anakin,
And he's interacted with Vader.
So I think he's made those conclusions. So I think so. That was the most telling part of the scene.
So good. So good. Okay. Let's keep going here. We then catch up with Sabine and Ezra to learn that Sabine has informed Ezra of the Empire's defeat, the Battle of Endor, and that the Emperor died, or at least that's what people say. There's also a new republic. Zeb is training recruits, and Hera's commanding a fleet. The one thing Sabine hasn't explained, though, is how she found him. She says it's complicated and shifts the conversation to tell him that Ahsoka took her on as her apprentice. When Ezra asks where Ahsoka is, Sabine pauses again because it's complicated. So last week we mentioned how it was going to be kind of we thought it would be a really big deal when Sabine has to explain this, the past decade to Ezra. Kevin, what did you think of this complicated, I'm using in air quotes here, conversation?
I mean, as an audience, we don't really need too much of a refresh ourselves. And so I think you guys talked a lot last week about how they padded out the episode at certain points. And so I think that anything more than what we got here really would have been padding it out. They could have even just cut into them talking and him being like, really, all that happened in the last, since I've been gone. Wow,
Yeah.
Even that would have almost been better than just sort of glazing over it like they did. But I do like how Sabine does skip over the actual tricky questions, like the fact that she thinks Ahsoka's probably dead and that sort of thing. I did find that kind of funny.
Well, I think it's just, she wants to. You can't imagine how difficult it would be for her to kind of process that, and how does she tell Ezra? So I get the idea of it's complicated. I just think though that I don't know. You mentioned how you thought it didn't really pad out the moment. I felt as though sitting there watching this episode, I'm like, Sabine, is it complicated? Could you not get into this a little bit more? I don't know.
My biggest thing is the fact that, Ezra clearly wants to go home and assumes Sabine has a way to get home. So
he does by
avoiding
the end of the
that
episode.
is just like, Sabine, you're being kind of selfish right now. He wants to go home and you have no way to do that.
This feels sort of typical. It shows how Sabine hasn't really grown.
She's so immature.
Yeah, exactly. In terms of accepting her, talking about her feelings or talking about what's going on, right? She suppresses it. She buries it. And I think that's very much why we saw her where we saw her at the beginning of this series is, in a place of sort of suppressing her true feelings about the events, leading to losing Ezra. In a lot of ways too, though, their banter and their interaction does still feel very Rebels-esque.
Sure, absolutely.
And I think that part at least felt a little refreshing, especially given the fact that he was like, is it complicated? Right?
He knows.
I think he knows without knowing, right? Kind of thing. I guess maybe not given where we end up, but yeah, I think there was parts of it that felt very nuanced to Rebels, and Sabine needs to grow up, obviously.
Well, I will say one thing that I will give to Sabine, or I guess more so probably Filoni. I love how Sabine responds when Ezra says the Emperor is dead. And she says, that's what people say. Because it just continues to show us how, in my mind, that was Dave Filoni saying, I'm still working on it. I'm still working on the somehow Palpatine returned. Everyone relax, it'll be okay. I think that was kind of what he was writing in that moment of just that's what people say. I mean, maybe, who knows, right? So, but let's keep going here. So Thrawn meets with the Great Mothers once again and tells them Ahsoka Tano lies hidden within the graveyards. He commands them to find her through their dark magic, and they locate her just as Ahsoka connects and locates Sabine by connecting with her through the Force. With the coordinates, Thrawn commands Captain Enoch to fire on Ahsoka. Ahsoka then takes off and manages to escape the attack. Thrawn, now pleased that they've forced her out of hiding, commands Captain Enoch to contact the fighter group and re-engage. In the distance, Sabine and Ezra see Baylan and Shin, and Baylan tells Shin to contact Thrawn, let them know of the coordinates of Ezra's coordinates, and then to kill Sabine and Ezra Bridger and to take her place in the coming Empire. She asks if he'll help, but he says his path lies in another direction. She responds with, she sends the coordinates to Enoch as Baylan offers her one parting lesson. Impatience for victory will guarantee defeat. The bandits ride towards Sabine and Bridger, and Shin follows as Thrawn commands Enoch to dispatch 2 gunships to assist them. So I wanted to pause here and talk about a couple of things. But first, I wanted to kind of get into the idea of the Great Mothers and Morgan Elsbeth, and like why are they so willing to do whatever Thrawn asks?
We don't know. I think they've seen something, or they have some sort of a foresight, or maybe it has something to do with what they're loading onto his ship and the promises that have been made. I think again, there's a lot of questions that still need to get answered, and I don't think we're going to get them all. But there's some interesting seed planting here in this scene that feels, it feels very, again, spiritual, and it highlights this idea of magic and this beyond just the Force, having a sense of connectivity that might rival the Force in a lot of ways.
Yeah, you guys talked about it on the episode last week about, Thrawn is clearly taking something off the planet, and this is clearly, we see now, it must be beneficial for, the witches here to sort of, they're working together in tandem. Maybe they're locked on the planet in some way, and they can't physically get these items off the planet themselves, and so need to help somebody else do it for them. But yeah, there's definitely, Thrawn is doing something to he's paying some sort of blood money to get this magic for sure.
And I just want to call out, like, it was really interesting that, as soon as the connection was made between Sabine and Ahsoka, they do that hard cut.
Oh, so
one of the
cool.
Night Sisters, and her eyes opens, and she's like, she's there. She basically triangulated her through the Force. But is it the Force? Because
the Force.
Okay.
Yeah, the Force is everything, and the way that the Jedi, that's just what the Jedi call it. But the Force is a magical thing that everyone believes in, or runs through everything, and different cultures have different names for it. So it is a thing that everyone is constant. It's just how you access it that changes depending on your culture.
Well, I was just wondering, could it also mean that, like, maybe Sabine's like got a bit of Night Sister in her?
No, I think it's through the Force. I like that though.
I just think it's funny, like, I've been led to believe that Thrawn is this great strategist, and I know at the end of the episode he kind of explains what he's doing here, but this seems like let Ahsoka go so that 5 minutes later I can use magic to find her again, even though if Baylan and Shin find Sabine, that's where Ahsoka's going to go. That's all they need to know. Like, they didn't need to use magic to find her. They had her tracked down and let her go. Like, it all just felt like it was very forced. Like, look at how smart Thrawn is. He's so strategic.
But that's the thing. He's the Sherlock of the Empire. Like, he just thinks he sees all the pieces and is able to find the perfect plan for every outcome. And he always thinks, and he's always a step ahead. That's his way of strategy. And the fact that, again, we're getting to see that executed in live action.
It just seems super convoluted in this particular instance. And again, he does explain why he's doing what he's doing here. But like when the Purgles come out of their hyperspace and there's the mines there and it scares them away and they're gone, that's brilliant. That's foresight. That's the strategy I'm sort of picturing, where it's like, okay, he's now gotten rid of their transportation. That's really clever. This one it was a little bit like, look at how smart he is, and I wasn't buying it.
And I think, honestly, Kevin, I felt that so much in this episode, and I know that part of my sort of initial understanding of this episode and sort of the rating that I was going to give it did fall in line with a lot of sort of like, well, why did they... Like, I get that it's to show how smart he is, but it also feels like it's just kind of backtracking, if you will, throughout the episode. But I think that just has a lot to do with the fact that we've only got this much time in this show to represent, X amount of time, right? And so it's like, maybe if we were actually there it would be a much longer amount of time throughout the day instead of just 5 minutes, what feels like 5 minutes. But obviously that doesn't translate as well to us as the audience. So I think you're right. Like I think there might have been a bit more of a middle ground that they could have met in terms of how they structured that within the episode and how they showed that off. But yeah, no, I think the only other thing I want to kind of bring up though here is the idea that last week we had kind of talked about the idea that maybe they were transporting deceased stormtroopers. I think it's much more in line with Justin. You had also speculated maybe Night Brothers and Night Sisters, and I think that actually makes a lot more sense. And thinking back to it and looking back at when Morgan Elsbeth says, "I've seen the catacombs," to me, it's like I don't think they would have built catacombs for stormtroopers, or that they would have stored them in the sacred catacombs of the Dathmiri. So I really am on the bandwagon that if we're talking about what did the Night Sisters get out of this, they get an army. And I'm wondering if they are anticipating that Thrawn doesn't have full control over that army, but maybe they do. And maybe that's kind of their angle.
I feel like it was more like they've been trapped on this planet for who knows how long, and they just want to get back to where they came from.
Just really want a PB&J, you know.
And if they're so connected if they're so connected to the Force or their magics or whatever, I'm sure they know what happened to Dathomir and how all the Night Sisters there died or were killed by the Empire.
But
so
were they all? Or is this?
Yes,
or is maybe? Wait. But is this maybe their?
I mean, Marin acts pretty confident that she's like the last one,
right? But is this maybe their opportunity to now bring back their culture?
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
That's what I was getting at.
See, that's what I.
All the ones on Dathomir are dead.
Yeah,
and all the ones that are in these catacombs are dead too. But they have the bodies still, and they weren't burned away to ash.
Right.
So they can bring these back. Bring up magic. Boop. There you go. Now we've got Dathomir back. So I think that's their end goal. Is just they want to go home,
recolonize their people.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Right? And make them matter. So yeah, I think that's it's. You might be right though, Nate. They might be playing to Thrawn's beat because it's more beneficial to them, but they know that he won't have full control. And I think he sees an opportunity, obviously, to provide a real army and a real threat that could inevitably get the galaxy in order. But again, there's just a lot of questions about what's been going on for 9 years on this planet, right?
Well, I also want to kind of get into what's about to go on, or what's going on for what might be about to go on for a certain character. Because I wanted to quickly ask you guys before we keep going about Baylan, in the sense when he says one parting lesson, and just really in the idea that it's a parting lesson. I think last week I was really under the impression that he would have Shin take over his path that he's on, but now it seems like they're really destined for different things, and this really did, to me, felt like a goodbye, like a parting lesson that says this is his last lesson to you. Now go off and be in Thrawn's empire while I do my own thing. I don't know.
He also added the remarks that he wanted her to succeed and that their paths are both different. He sees them as different paths, and he knows that she has ambition and she wants to achieve things, and he just wants to find what's calling him. So it's clear that Baylan is making the adult decision here to cut his losses and to understand that he has trained her as well as he can, and now it's time for her to go off. But yeah, I really enjoyed this part. I don't think many really suspected that this could be the case. A lot of people have said maybe Shin is going to inevitably become Baylan's enemy, but I don't know. It depends.
Yeah, I mean, there was they
there's tension.
Thought about that at the end of the episode for sure. I think the thing that I was just kind of wanting a little bit more of an understanding of what was going on with Baylan in this episode. I think it's one of those unfortunate things that with like the loss of Ray Stevenson, like we might not ever know if they don't tell us next week what Baylan was destined for, or what he was kind of digging into. And if we do find out, it's certainly not going to be through that character.
Yes, and I think that's the route that they'll go. I would think less of this show if they try to somehow write Ray's character like Baylan off, especially given like how integral his performances have been throughout, just to simply make up for his loss. I think the story, the series definitely has Baylan Skoll as being very important. Mm-hmm. And I don't think we're going to get a closure to his character. I don't think we're going to get a resolution to his character that's going to be, sending him off, right? We're going to find a way to continue that story that Baylan is a part of in another way. Mm-hmm. And that excites me. But it's also, like you said, it's bittersweet because Ray Stevenson is incredible in this role. This is like crowning achievement.
One of the best, I think, Star Wars villains we've gotten in a long time.
And the thing is, can you call him a villain? Like I don't know. Like he's only a
Let's
villain because
he's
he's against our protagonist that is Ahsoka. But his intentions. It's funny. There's so many people being like, how is it that I'm like kind of agreeing with Baylan, right?
Totally.
Like it's true.
I want to just, I know we're going long on this section of the episode, but I couldn't help but bring up a tweet that's gone viral. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but from Twitter user, I think they're Nisa592, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, tweeted a close-up from a few episodes ago of Baylan's wrist display, which has some names that they translated. That's just a list of names saying Luke, Leia, Han, Chewie, R2-D2, C-3PO, and then Ben. And part of me, makes me think this is just a clever little Easter egg, especially given the fact that it says Chewie and not Chewbacca. Like, why would Baylan ever refer to Chewbacca as Chewie? He doesn't know him like that. They're not cool like that. But Kevin, do you think this is anything more than just like a little hint, nudge, nudge at the fans?
I mean, I guess it really depends what his end goal is. I was going to save it for predictions, but, is he looking for the world between worlds for some purpose? And if that is maybe to connect our OG characters to their eventual destinies. Like, I agree with Justin that I wouldn't outright call Baylan a villain. And what he does see is, the Empire still exists. Maybe he even knows that the Emperor might not be dead. I mean, if Sabine is hinting at it, maybe there are already feelings in the Force that something's amiss. And what if his end goal is, even if people need to be sacrificed along the way, is to eventually bring down the Empire, the eventual First Order, and the Emperor once and for all, and fulfill the overall prophecy.
So it's a hit list through time.
Maybe it's not a hit list. It's I'm going to get in their way so they go the right way sort of thing.
Oh, okay. It's a redirecting list.
Oh, so he's like time cop. He's going to like time Jedi, and he's going to
I love that idea.
That's interesting. He wants to change their path to change the outcome of how to break the cycle. I don't know. I think Jedi and Empire and Sith, they're all on the hit list. They're all the ones that he's trying. They're part of the cycle that he's trying to break. I think he can't just break one; you have to break both. And I think that's where he gets gray, right? In the sense of like, is he a villain or is he a good guy? His intentions, while they seem justifiable, he talks about the cycle, the sort of the rigor of the galaxy constantly going through this good side, bad side, light, dark. That something needs to change, right? And what he's seeking is the beginning of that. And I'm wondering if what that beginning is. And the world between worlds seems to be very special and destined to people that seek it, and it seeks them in a lot of ways. So I'd be interested to see if he's trying to find a gateway, but it could be something else.
Well, see, the only thing that I was wondering, right, because especially given that the list ends with Ben, and this wouldn't be old Ben, this would be, 5-year-old Ben. And so, I think if Baylan believes that the grandson of Darth Vader is maybe the actual heir to the prophecy, right? He would have studied the prophecy, the one to bring balance to the Force at the Jedi Temple. And we've talked in previous episodes about sort of how Jedi/non-Jedi he is. He's like that, that meme of Drake, like doing the, but he's like, in my mind, I feel like maybe he wants to start a new empire of his own with that kid. And so maybe it's just it's less of a, like you're saying, like a hit list, Kevin, but more of a way to say, like, let's get to these people because they get me to Ben, and Ben is the answer. I don't know.
I also think that it's just a little Easter egg that they sort of put in. But again, it really does come down to what the end goal is, right?
Do they rewrite the Knights of Ren? Right, we know there's a comic book about the Knights of Ren, and I understand that canon is canon, and they don't usually like to break that stuff because these comics and this series is part of the new canon. But if maybe Baylan in some way could or was destined to be involved in the Knights of Ren as a knight.
I don't know. I get the sense that he's looking for knowledge. He seems very much like a way seeker, like I mentioned earlier, from the High Republic era, where it was a Jedi who just listened to the Force and went where they were needed type thing.
That's
and I
cool.
feel like he's doing much the same thing, where he's constantly trying to find new knowledge, and maybe that's power, but it's different ways of accessing the Force throughout the galaxy. And I think that might be his true calling, is just to absorb as much power as possible. I feel like that's his end goal.
He's looking for the One Piece.
That's what he's doing.
I love it.
Dang it.
I love it.
All right. Well, I hope he starts stretching his limbs, but let's keep going here. The attack begins as the bandits chase the Noti caravan. I think we were calling them the Noti before. Noti. Sabine manages to shoot down a few bandits, but then Ezra shouts, "Whoopa, whoopa!" And the Noti circle up. They all lock down inside their ships. Meanwhile, Ahsoka locates them as she's still being pursued. While she's still in flight, she jumps out of her ship and rolls as she hits the ground in some of probably the worst CGI that the show's done. But I will say she's immediately confronted by Baylan, and the two begin to duel. As the enemy begins to circle in, Sabine attempts to offer Ezra his old lightsaber or even a blaster, and he says, "The Force is my ally. It's all I need." As Baylan and Ahsoka continue to duel, Shin attempts to take out Ezra, but he blocks her attack with the Force. Ahsoka gets some assistance from Huyang in the form of cover fire and escapes from her fight with Baylan, taking his howler. Thrawn recognizes Baylan's absence from the fight with Sabine and Ezra and the stormtroopers as they start to surround them. Ezra suggests that listen, hey, why don't we just all talk, or you can take us as prisoner. Shin shouts fire, and then a blast of force pushes some troopers forward as Ahsoka joins the battle and knocks Shin to the ground. Okay, so let's talk about the big battle of Peridea here, the fight between Baylan and Ahsoka and the attack on the Noti caravan. Darcy, is there anything that you wanted to highlight about this fight?
Well, I gotta say, one of my biggest issues with last week's episode was Ezra's reintroduction. I was very disappointed to see that he wasn't just, I want him to be the rebel that we knew him as, constantly being a thorn in Thrawn's side and just messing up all his plans to try and survive on this planet or whatever, or bring back the Empire. So I was very bummed when he first said no lightsaber, no blaster, the Force is my ally. Mm-hmm. But then that led to just the most Rebels moments ever, where it's like, oh, I'm watching Ezra fight with the Force, and it's the moment when he stops Shin's lightsaber and you see it blurring through the Force, bending. Incredible. I loved it. Yeah, so that Ezra fighting with just the Force alone was enough for me to get back on board with this character. So I love that.
And that's exactly what we should have seen Yoda doing in the prequels. Is not using a bloody weapon that he's very much against, but using the Force as his ally. Because I've seen a lot of buzz on Twitter the last couple days about people who grew up with the prequel trilogy saying a Jedi would never give up his weapon, because if it's Anakin who says something about that's such an important part of him is the lightsaber. But if you grew up with Yoda and in the OG trilogy talking about how the Force is a Jedi's greatest strength, that's how he should have been fighting Palpatine, is just with the Force. I think that would have sent a much better message, made a lot more sense. So it was cool to see Filoni kind of nod out to that Ezra's become a real true Jedi, not a warmonger, not a soldier, but a user of the Force. That was really cool.
Yeah. He's found God in a lot of ways, right?
He is God.
He's Moses.
He's Moses.
And he's definitely
letting the people go.
Exactly. I think what's interesting too, though, and I mentioned it before, I want to know what's happened over the 9 years that's gotten Ezra to this place, because he is very chill. Like, to your point, Darcy, he's not that rebel that's like, that kid that's going to go and like fuck up things and like disguise himself to like get onto a ship and like cause a ruckus. And, that's not his game. And I want to know what's happened. And I wonder if what's happened to him and what he's connected with is the thing that Baylan is looking for. And I'm wondering if that's sort of rooted in what Baylan is searching, because there's a total, like, when he looks over and he says, the Force is my ally, like, there's such a confidence there, but there's also such an uncertainty that I don't know. There's just a balance between someone who feels like they got this under in their in the palm of their hand, but also we'll see how it goes. So I love
very Ezra, right? Like,
but that's what I mean. That felt very Ezra. I loved that. Sabine's just going around blasting these stormtroopers. I think again, this felt like a Rebels episode in a lot of ways.
For sure, especially I think this fight, and
specific scene.
I think it's a great call out too in terms of looking at Ezra and sort of thinking about like, it's been a long time for him without a lightsaber, and it's almost as though he's been forced, no pun intended, to go back. Sort of to a simpler time, to an earlier age of the Jedi. And I think the interesting thing too is like, to a simpler time. I love that the Noti are using what Ezra calls, he says, Yuka. And I just imagine that's the Noti word for slingshot, right? And it's that's Ezra's
he taught them how to protect themselves.
It's his original weapon, and it's just as ineffective here. And I love it. I thought that was really, really, really fantastic.
Just on the note with Baylan and Ahsoka,
mm-hmm.
I just love, like, the CGI was a little rough with her jumping out and whatnot, but when she lands, the fact that she lands right in front of Baylan, it's there. Like, round 2, here we go. Like, it was a cool little moment, and I something I guess I wasn't expecting, but I was like, oh, that's convenient. And given where we last saw the two of them fighting, the journey that she's been on to get here, she's now wielding 2 lightsabers. She's a little more poised and a little more in the zone. She has her mind in the right place. You see a difference in the way she's fighting Baylan after the events of episode 4. It was a cool little lightsaber duel. But again, we got a lightsaber duel. Like, awesome. You know what I mean?
So good. And like, shout out to Kevin Kiner, to Kevin Kiner for the piano note. Although, Kevin, I think you could have done that on the piano. You've been practicing. But I just
that's his song.
That's Baylan's
song.
It's Baylan's song.
So
like, the moment he grabs her fist and stops it, and it's one of the coolest things. Like, literally, it just brought me right back to him in the hallway.
Different.
And and it's I can't get over it. And then I also just want to shout out Ahsoka when she goes up against Shin Hati for the first time in this series, and basically does like Kevin, what's it called in basketball when like they're about to score like a dunk and then they just get the ball smacked out of their hand? Like, what is that referred to as?
Stuffed.
Is it called stuffed?
Stuffed.
Okay, well, Ahsoka, I wasn't expecting the answer from Darcy, but
I used to play basketball, man. Come on.
Ahsoka stuffed Shin in that moment, basically just saying, like, sit down, little girl, like, you don't know what you're dealing with. That was unreal.
But she extended an olive branch.
Sure, absolutely, but she whooped her ass prior.
When she stuffs her there, all she needed to do is wave her finger in her face like the Kembe Mutombo.
Denied.
So good.
Denied.
So good. So good. Okay. Well, I mean, this fight, and I think a lot of the sort of moments in between really brought the episode up for me. But we got a little bit more to go here. Thrawn commands a recall of the gunships and the aerial pursuit, and Morgan gives him like this look of like, what are you doing? Are you sure? And he says these are unfortunate but acceptable losses given the absence of Lord Baylan, which he kind of like, in my mind, that's him being like, it's actually your fault. Like, these are the 2 people you entrusted with this mission, and like, it's on you. And so she quickly backs down, and he says, in the grand scheme of things, one might even call this first match with Tano a success. Morgan disagrees, and he shares with her that their enemy it was so distracted that the first cargo transfer is now almost complete, which means they can leave this forsaken place. Ahsoka Tano has lost the one thing she could not afford to lose today: time. He says time is very much on their side, and he walks away after saying he's going to keep it that way. So, Kevin, I mean, you already kind of commented a little bit on sort of the idea of how they portrayed Thrawn's strategy here. Thrawn's strategy.
Strategy.
What did you like? Did this save it for you? Did this work out a little bit better with the reveal of sort of what he was aiming at?
I mean, we find out what he was trying to do. It's the way he did it that kind of annoyed me earlier in the episode. I think letting her go just to instantly, at least from our perspective, look for her again. If he had instead, said, pursue, get in her way, but don't attack. And,
Push her
then
to
Morgan
a
could have been
spot,
like, what's
maybe.
going on? But yeah,
Right.
like sort of, wait until she finds Sabine, but make it hard, make it take a while. And then he could explain that it was just a stall tactic. He eventually wanted them all to be there, far away from where they are. But like it was the execution of a plan that now makes sense that I wasn't too keen on. But again, by the end of the episode, it was like, okay, I see how he's laying out the pieces here and what his strategy was. I was just not a huge fan of the execution of it.
Yeah, he played a specific card in the moment, which was the Night Sisters, right? He threw that card down and he used them to, as a strategy boost to kind of find Ahsoka in that moment.
But
right?
he
'Cause
didn't need
he
to.
knew-
They already knew where Sabine was. Like, it was just like, let's throw the Night Sisters a bone here and give them something to do. They're bored. That's, that feels more like that than anything else.
I think the most interesting part from that whole sequence, though, is the fact that they were able to triangulate based on the Force, right? And I think that was
What they were
that
trying to show.
was what they were trying to show. But maybe to your point, that was a bit of a stuffed portion of the episode just to prove that one
A different
thing. I don't know.
type of stuffed. I will say Lars's line delivery when he says the word
This
time
whole episode
is like, that's, to me, that was the most, like, him explaining his theory to Morgan of like what she wasted was time. That was for me the most Thrawn that he's been in these past few episodes. It's just so damn good. But
it's peak Thrawn. I mean, again, he's the Sherlock Holmes of the Empire, and the most the most brilliant strategist ever. And it makes sense. He knows everything.
I was after this episode in my mind, I was like, Darcy's gonna like this episode because Thrawn really does show himself as a strategist, even at times in Rebels, and I haven't read the Legends books, but in Rebels, he would allow loss. He said you learn from your loss, right? You learn from the strategy. You learn about your enemy so that it makes you stronger the next time. And I think that we're seeing that on full display here, and as a tactic to buy them time so that they can fill the rest of their cargo, so that's they can get out of here quickly. But Nate, like you were saying, Mikkelsen is killing it. And I was reading online, like a lot of people saying anyone else could have been Thrawn. You could have had someone a little more spry, like a Benedict Cumberbatch,
right, the actual Sherlock Holmes.
the actual Sherlock Holmes.
Sure.
But I then someone had cited something Filoni said, like, not everybody looks good in blue, and thank God Lars Mikkelsen looks good in blue. But this is perfect, right? Like this is like full on seeing that animated character, like we've seen all of these characters come to life in a great way.
So good. Let's get to the finale of this episode, of the penultimate episode, before we get to the finale next week. As the troopers and Shin retreat, which we also got some trooper banter, I noticed, back and forth, and none of them exploded in green smoke. So I think for the most part they are alive. But as they all retreat, Shin, we see Ahsoka offer, as you said earlier, Justin, an olive branch. She offers to help Shin. And Shin refuses, and she takes off running. Sabine is so happy to see that Ahsoka's not dead, and Ahsoka is stoked to be reunited not only with Sabine, but with Ezra, and she lets out, I think, the first laugh that we've ever heard of Ahsoka from Rosario Dawson. Hu Yang flies in as the Noti come out of hiding, and Ezra says he has a feeling, and he's all smiling, and his bright blue eyes are glowing, and he says, I think I might be going home after all. So this is a perfect moment for our predictions. I'd love to know what you thought of this ending, but I also, I want to know, do you think Ezra will be going home after all? Kevin?
I'm kind of torn with who's getting off the planet at the end of this season. I'm almost thinking Ahsoka makes some sort of sacrifice. I don't think with her life, I don't think you have this show finally introduce live action audiences to this character and, just to kill her off this soon.
Totally.
There's so much potential going forward. But I think she makes some sort of sacrifice to get Sabine and, oh my goodness, and Ezra onto Thrawn's ship, as stowaways. They'll leave, and it'll be up to Ahsoka and Shin to work together in kind of like an interesting light side, dark side Padawan master relationship. Maybe use the world between worlds as some sort of vessel to find their way off this planet eventually. But I think that's how we leave Ahsoka. I think Ezra does to leave under, maybe circumstances that are not as ideal as he seems to think they're going to be by the end of this episode. But no, that's sort of where I see this going.
See, I almost thought that it would be Sabine and Shin and Ezra that make it off, and it would be Ahsoka and Baylan left to sort of figure that out. But I also do like that idea as well. I just think the concept of continuing a sort of a will they won't they friendship between Sabine and Shin, and how much they've had so much conflict this season, I think would be really interesting to see them eventually become friends. But I think with Baylan knowing maybe Ahsoka's direct connection to Vader, to Anakin, I just feel like maybe she's more important to him. Which is why I don't think that he was really invested in that fight when they fought. I thought, oh, you know what? He kind of was like, yeah, you go and it'll be fine. I think he kind of let her go in that moment because he wants to continue with her.
Exactly, and not continue, but get her out of there.
Oh, okay,
right. So he could seize whatever it is that's here for himself. I'm very much aligned with you, Nate. I think that it's going to come down to Ahsoka trying to stop Baylan from finding whatever it is that he's looking for. I think that's going to become clear, and it might become clear pretty quickly off the top of the episode.
The Bendu.
And I think that Ezra, well, whatever it is.
Sure,
but
yeah.
the idea that, like I was saying before, I wonder if Ezra, the reason why Ezra is the way he is and how deeply connected he is with the Force has something to do with what Baylan is searching for.
Interesting.
And if Ezra drops that hint to Ahsoka and then starts to understand that that's what Baylan's here for and that's what Baylan is trying to do, they divide and conquer. And I would love to see Ezra and Sabine do a classic Rebels mission where they take that Stormtrooper armor, get themselves all dressed up, and get themselves back and actually sneak out.
Yeah.
Classic Star Wars, classic, it's Ezra. He loves to dress up as that. They always used to do missions like that. I think it would be really fun, and through that, they're confronted by Shin, right? And I think it would be interesting to see how that unfolds, and they kind of unravel what's going on Thrawn's ship, and what he's bringing back, and Ahsoka, to your point, is chasing down Baylan and stopping him. So that's sort of my loose theory of what's going to happen, and I don't know. I think you're right. I don't think Ahsoka will end up off of this planet by the end of the finale.
Well, at the very least, I hope that Ezra grabs one of the helmets and just looks at Sabine and says, for the collection or something, because it's all gold and cracked and cool looking.
I hope he finds Kanan's saber.
That would be pretty nuts. But Darcy, I want to know: do you think Ezra gets off the planet, goes home?
I don't think anyone's getting off the planet.
Whoa!
I think it's gonna be we can either let Thrawn go back and go back with him, or find a way to make stow away, or we can stop this threat from going back to their home, like their galaxy.
Wow.
And they can figure it out on their own. Once they stop this ultimate threat, they can take the time to figure out how to get back now that they're all together. And maybe, again, 3 heads are better than one with this world between worlds. They could work out something where they can be in communication with someone back in the regular galaxy and work from both sides or something. But I don't. The way that, again, earlier in this episode when Hu Yang's flying around, he says, "Oh, I hope I survive long enough to see how this plays out," or whatever.
No.
He mentions when he sees them all together. I'm like, don't say a flag like that. So the fact that he didn't die in the gunfight was great, but now I'm just worried that this flag that Ezra brought up is like, maybe they're not going home. Like maybe home is the fact that they're all together now,
Interesting.
and they got to find a way back or forward from wherever it ends next episode, whether it is, again, chasing down Baylan with Ahsoka, or, again, just stopping Thrawn and the Night Sisters with their, grand plan of bringing back Dathomir, or, again, just invading the other galaxy. So, yeah, I think it's going to be another ultimate sacrifice, and that'll lead into a season 2 where they can, again, find their way back or stop another threat that it was just the tip of the iceberg with Thrawn and the Night Sisters in this universe.
Right, or
galaxy.
Because what is home for Ezra? Right? Like, he doesn't really have, sure, Lothal, but, like, home is the rebels.
The crew.
It's the crew, right?
Yeah.
It's
But that's
the
why
ship.
he said it. That's why he said it in that moment,
Right.
too.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I have a feeling I'm going home, right? Because he's being reunited with not all of them, but, some of his family, right? The other.
We better get Zed
3
next
important-
episode.
Well, I think
Just
we'll
make
get
it
him on the
happen.
other side, but, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
But, let's also remember, like, this is the first time that Ahsoka has seen Ezra since the World Between Worlds in season 4.
Mm-hmm.
He said, "Come find me when you make it out," and they never had a reunion. So this reunion has been a long time coming. So it's going to be interesting to see how, you see how skilled Ezra is now with the Force, and there's something about this planet beyond what Thrawn is doing, and I'm interested. In some ways, I think Thrawn might be a little bit intimidated because he was asking, "Where's Baylan? Where's your dude?
Maybe he knows what's going down.
Where's your dude? What's going on?"
Interesting.
He kind of suspected that he couldn't trust him. Right? So
Yeah, because he was a Jedi. And all right, well, only as Thrawn puts it, time will tell. But we've got time on our side as we move into the final Watch Club. But before we leave, we have to, of course, let you know our overall score and rating for this episode, which we're going to be rating on a scale of 1 to 5 times well wasted. And Kevin, I'm going to get you to kick us off.
Thrawn's planning and whatnot. But overall, this is a terrific episode, a really fantastic penultimate episode in what is a much larger story. I think we're seeing sort of unfold here. Filoni's been working with Favreau and really setting up this new age of television live action Star Wars. But I think this series, this season, has really laid the foundations of where we're going and what our focus is going to be as we move forward. And so I know I had some doubts early on in the season that you guys very quickly quelled and reassured me that this is just sort of the first chapter in a much longer story with these characters that we're going to be, I think, very clearly spending a lot more time with. But to talk about the episode itself, Filoni snuck in another lightsaber fight, so that's always a lot of fun. We got some really great dialogue exchanges between some of the characters. Thrawn, himself just dropping some all-time Star Wars quotes here. I think because of who he is and his presence on the screen, Mickelson's really nailing that presence. I've felt it now in just 2 episodes. I'm like, okay, Thrawn's dope. Thrawn's a badass. This is awesome. I can't wait to see more of him. And so I think, in terms of just sort of getting our characters back together, this reunion felt better than the reunion we got at the end of last week's episode, which is kind of interesting given the relationships between the characters. But I'll take what we got from it. And I think the interesting thing is that it poses more questions than it gives us answers, which is always exciting as we move throughout a story like this. And so I'm very curious to see what happens next week. And so the fact that I'm already excited to see where we go next is such a testament to the episode. I know you guys are going to talk about your musical cues and stuff like that, so I'll save all the gritty details and just say, as a casual fan of these characters who's now just getting into them through the live-action world, I've really fallen in love with them over these 7 episodes and can't wait to see more. So for that fact alone, I'll give this episode a 4.5 out of 5 times well wasted.
Alrighty, okay. Darcy, how about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, after last week's episode had me very disappointed with the reveals. Not much happened. I didn't get the impact I was wanting from the Thrawn and the Ezra, introductions, but this one completely 180'd that my opinion on these characters, and I can't wait to see more stories with these live action versions of the characters we like so much. But again, the lightsaber fight we got was great. Ahsoka was more snips than we've ever seen her so far in live action, and that felt great. I love the interaction with Anakin, and I hope we get a bit more of her training or just going through that, because again, Hayden Christensen popping up is always a great thing to me. So I love this episode. Strong 5 out of 5 for me. I can't wait to see how the series ends. Woo! Or the season ends.
Alrighty, Justin.
Damn. This 7th episode is great. It's a refreshing departure, I think, from the typical penultimate episode formula that often serves as a setup for what would be a grand finale. Instead, I think it's embracing more of the consistent and self-contained narrative focus and delivering a story that is keeping me engaged. And I think, as Darcy and Kevin have said, that's keeping them engaged as well. I think many would probably wish for some sort of dramatic cliffhanger. But the episodes and the series, as Kevin was saying, its message is more about, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. It emphasizes the importance of the present moment that we're in, and it's kind of inviting us as an audience to enjoy each episode rather than anxiously anticipate what's coming, even though we do, because there's just more questions than there are answers, and that's exciting and that's fun. It's keeping everyone talking about it. So while I'm sure it might not be the typical or be considered a typical penultimate, this episode, in my opinion, defies those expectations and really does focus on delivering a compelling story that, with great action, outstanding performances, nods to the past, with great reunion. The series is just a real great example of the ability to balance nostalgia with fresh storytelling and finding the balance of mixing that. It reminds us that in the Star Wars universe, the journey is just as important as the destination. And I'm eagerly anticipating what this finale is going to be. So I'm going to give this one a 4.5 out of 5.
Yeah, I was, I think, to your point, Justin, of you talking about, like, the conventional penultimate episode.
I wrote this thinking about you.
I appreciate that. You're always thinking about me. I know it. I think, I definitely went into this episode and even came out of this episode, sort of like expecting more of a penultimate, conventional penultimate episode that we're used to. We're used to getting the penultimate episode that is like, it's the best episode of the season, right?
Are we, though?
I am, at least, for a lot of shows that I've watched. But I will say, like, I think there are some incredible moments throughout this episode that really brought me up. Us talking about it brought me up as well. I think seeing Ahsoka, weave through a minefield as an homage to the asteroid field in Empire Strikes Back, or the use of, like, force combat from Ezra blocking Shin's saber, and then, like, that piano note moment with Baylan, like, all of those, like, sort of moments that had me, like, just sitting on the edge of my seat, sort of gripping my fist together, just stoked. And of course C-3PO, like, there was just so much to the episode that really, really helped to kind of get me over some of those minor gripes that I think I also share with Kevin in terms of, like, how they portray Thrawn's strategy, and the fact that it does feel like a very short amount of time, when in reality, in the actual show, it was probably a lot more, and Thrawn's tactics actually made a lot more sense. I think, as far as the episode in terms of what you were kind of mentioning, like it being part of a larger story. This episode very much solidified the fact that I'm like, yeah, there's going to be a season 2 of this show. I wholeheartedly believe, especially now that the writer's strike is over, I believe that is going to give them the full green light to make a last-minute edit change to the episode that's locked in on that, re-upload the episode on Disney Plus for when it's ready to go out, and have a little end tag that says Ahsoka will return in season 2. I think it's bound to happen. I'm so intrigued to see what happens next. I love, Darcy, the idea of none of them getting to leave. I love the idea of maybe like Lost on Peridia, in a sense, like the ABC show Lost, but like, they have to learn to live with Thrawn, and like we see like a Noti like befriending Thrawn or something crazy like that. I don't know. I'm okay with them kind of diving into trying to put some of these characters together that we initially don't think belong, because I think that falls very much within the theming of the moral gray area of how can we, I loved the episodes where Ezra had to work with Thrawn, and so I would love to sort of see some semblance of that between any of these characters going forward. This is some excellent Star Wars, and there's definitely more to come. I'm going to give this episode a solid, very solid 4 out of 5 times well wasted. But that is it for this Watch Club for Star Wars Ahsoka Part 7. Ooh, we're almost there. We hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, make sure to subscribe to us wherever you like to listen to podcasts, if you haven't already. And if you want to write into the show with your thoughts or predictions on the shows we cover in Watch Club, well, let me just, I'm just going to use my Dathmiri Night Sister Great Mother magic. Darcy, help me make the triangle, okay? And we're locating Justin. There he is. So he can tell you how you can reach us.
They can reach us at wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. That's wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. Or they can reach out to us on Twitter at GeekcentricYT, or the app formerly known as Twitter. Or they can reach out to us on Instagram at wearegeekcentric.
I promise listeners that the Darcy and I making the triangle thing was much cooler looking than it sounded. I promise.
I don't know why I played along.
I wish we had video.
No, it wasn't, guys. I can assure you.
I regret it. I'm glad there's no video.
You can also join our Discord so you can keep up with this Watch Club. Share your thoughts and theories with us. Do you think Ezra's going home? What do you think's going on? What do you think the finale is going to be all about? And how are you enjoying this Ahsoka live action series? You can join the Discord by clicking on the link in our description. Keep in mind, we also have a ton of other episodes covering the latest summer releases out now, including our recent spoiler-free reviews for The Creator, another phenomenal sci-fi movie that I really do think everyone should go and check out. We also have our reviews for Expendables 4, a movie that no one should check out, but you should listen to the review to hear how much Kevin and Justin bag on that movie. It's awesome. It's such a fun time. Of course, we have our review for I Am Groot Season 2, Star Wars Ahsoka Episodes 1 and 2. You can go back and see where we were. We're just little Ahsoka babies back then. And then, of course, Only Murders in the Building Season 3 and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. We have a ton of great interviews with all sorts of Star Wars folks, including Hayden Christensen, Anakin Skywalker himself. You can check those out on your podcast service of choice or over on YouTube at youtube.com/geekcentric. There's going to be a lot to talk about as the hot geek summer begins its cozy transformation into the cozy, warm, pumpkin spice geek fall. We've got some spooky reviews on the way that I'm stoked for. And of course, if all this talk of fall is getting you a little cold and you're missing summer, you can also check out our recap of Fan Expo 2023. And we also did some fun additional coverage that's now available on our YouTube, as well as our Instagram and TikTok, where we played Kiss, Marry, Kill. And that was a lot of fun. Plus, we have an interview with Mike from Roosevelt's. And if you want to kind of check out some of the most stylish geeky shirts in our galaxy, definitely check out that interview as well. Kevin, Darcy, Justin, thank you so much for joining me for this Watch Club. And as we say, we are no Jedi.